when people, and this is not necessarily a personal thing, but I see people around me who write their lists, like what qualities they want in a partner or a job, and then they get the job or the partner, and they're like, oh, I forgot to put this quality on. I have to go back and rewrite my list. And I'm thinking, but no, in your Vortex knows, and through living of step 1, it's automatic. So what would happen there? Or I don't quite understand enough to say, oh, well, this happened and this is what.
Well, here's the thing. You follow what he's asking? You're absolutely right that through the living of life, when you know what you don't want, you know what you do want, and it goes on your list. When you know what you don't want, you know what you do want, and it goes on your list. So you've been writing that list. You have been adding to it incrementally. And as the list evolved, the larger part of you evolved with it. In other words, you became vibrationally the being who was the liver of that list, including all of the components of the partners that you chose, or the aspects of the physical life that you've chosen. So now, just like you said, when you take the time to get into the vortex, now you're in there, and now you have access so that you can see. It's like the path unfolds before you. You have the impulse and the instinct and the rendezvous in order to bring about what you want. So if all of that is true, and it is, then where does list writing come in? Why would anybody script anything? Why would anybody take the time to write down their goals? Why would focusing upon your list of goals be of value to you? And what the value, and there is value, and what the value is that you've already put it into your vortex. But when you go through the list, you may be training yourself into rhythm with what's in your vortex. So there are a lot of people that think that that's how they're creating. They think writing the list is like placing the order. But we want you to know the order's already been placed and the order's already been fulfilled. And you writing the list is just your way of practicing yourself into the vibration of receiving the order that's already been placed. So when they go back to their list and they say, oh, he's beautiful, but I left money off the list. And that's happening whether they're writing the list or not, because as through their life experience together, they keep adding the components. The thing that is really worth mentioning here is that there are so many people who, in the attraction of a partner, are looking to that other person to fulfill all the missing parts in their life experience. So there are a lot of people that write the list for the partner. When he comes, let him bring money, a lot of money, and a really good place for us to live, and a boat and a car, and let him bring all the things that I want. And we want you to know that you've already put all of those things, and what you really want is just for him to show up to enjoy them with you. And if you think independently like that everything that you need is there, and this person is a component that will please you as well as the other components, that is a freer, less resistant approach.
So what would my advice to them be? Go back and revisit your list, leave the list, appreciate the qualities of what you have there? Or?
Well, you could say to them, you know, you constructed an order form or a list before you wrote anything down, and it's held for you and been delivered for you in your vortex of creation. But I like seeing you write your list, because I think as you write your list, it's tuning you into the vibration that will help you to allow the receiving of what you've already placed the order for. But when you write your list, just keep writing it from the standpoint of what you want, not from what's missing. In other words, this falls into the category, and you may have heard us say it, the fastest way to get into the vortex is to make peace with what is. And someone looking down a list and finding things missing is not someone who's making peace with what is. They're waging a little bit of war with what isn't, which will hold them away from what they desire. So it's a little tricky when you say, what should my advice to them be? Because as a teacher, you've all long come to understand that a teacher is only as effective as his understanding of where his student is. So there's a lot of what we say that many people are not ready to hear because they don't have the basic understanding of the laws of the universe. Here's what we would say to anyone that we were giving advice to, even if we were standing in your physical shoes. We would say, first of all, do you acknowledge that you are a vibrational being first and foremost? And the majority of people that you would ask that question of would say, what? What? So then you've got more conversation. So then the next thing that we would say, if they say yes, then we would move on, and we'll tell you in a minute what we'd say next. If they say what, if they don't get it, then we would start at a more general place. We would say, standing in your physical shoes, I know that I was, and so were you, non-physical energy before I came forth into this body. Now, right now, you can see millions of people peeling off and going in other directions. In other words, right there, they really don't want to hear that. That's not what they came to talk to you about. They want to talk about their goals. They don't want to talk about their vibrational genesis. So that's why we're talking about you have to know who your audience is that you're writing for. In other words, you will bore people who aren't at it. It's like sometimes if someone comes in and wants to know where the light comes from, they might be just asking where the switch is. They might not be really asking how electricity came to be and what voltage is flowing through the lights. And so you sort of have to sense where they are. But if someone is seriously wanting their life to be better, we would say, I figured something out and it's so revolutionary to me that I just cannot resist telling it to you, and it goes like this. I figured out that I am flesh, blood, and bone. It's obvious. But I am a vibrational being, and I am more a transmitter and a receiver than anything else. And I've figured out that I can feel when my transmissions are in alignment, and I can feel when they're not. And so everything I do from sun up to sundown, every waking hour, everything I do is with one key thing in mind. How is the thought, word, or action that I'm offering in the moment measuring up to the larger part of me that is a vibrational offer? And I can tell the happier I am, the more in alignment. The more joyful I am, the more in alignment. The more clever I am, the more in alignment. The more fun I'm having, the more in alignment. And then we would turn right to them and say, and you're that way too. I know that about you. I've watched how much fun you're seeking. I can feel the power of your being. I know that you want alignment first and foremost. And then if you get that far, now you have an opportunity to answer any questions that they could ever answer in a way that has a premise that is stable, you see. But if you can't get that far, then you really don't have very much that you can offer them. Because if you can't get that far, then they are one who is among the masses, who is outside the vortex, just comparing all of those components. And listen to those. Jerry and Esther had the television on the other night, and they were talking about what happiness is. Esther thought she would lose her mind because they were not approaching it from a premise that they were just measuring this against this. It was going all over the place. They couldn't even begin to sort it out. They didn't have a clue to what they were reaching for. Do children make us happy? And if we have children, should we stay home and raise them, or should we turn them over to a nanny? And Esther just said, kill me now. Kill me now. You just cannot find answers to those questions. It's just a full-out war and never-ending debate about which way of life is the better way of life. Everyone's squabbling over having found the perfect way of life that everyone else should follow. And it's so much simpler than that.